And I think we are live. All righty. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another session. This is session number 2, where I interview a bunch of SaaS founders about a specific topic. The topic today is going to be next year goals and plans, and overall, what it is that the SaaS founders are hoping to achieve 2021. Well, what a year it has been so far, and hopefully next year is going to be productive. Let's put it this way. Less crazy. Drop in the comments what you are hoping next year to be. I would really want to know. I am excited to kick off this session. We are going to have today 20 founders. Last time we were at around 18. This time is going to be 20 founders, and I'm really excited. Alrighty, the very first guest is Richard Jackson, and I am letting my first guest in. Hi, Richard, can you hear me?
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. There you go. All righty. So welcome. We are excited to hear a little bit about your company, where you are right now, and your plans for next year.
Okay, so I'm based in the UK. I'm Richard Jackson. I'm the CEO of AlphaLets and founder of AlphaLets. And we have designed an app for residential landlords. So we're a cloud-based and mobile technology for landlords. And where we are today is we spent the last 12 months developing this app. It's like building a house. It always takes way longer than you actually think. It's way more difficult than you think. But we spent 12 months building it, and we've got a really, really great core product. We still need probably another 30 to 60 days to really finish it off. But I'm really delighted to say that with the excitement we've created, we've just raised £250,000 of seed funding. So that is now in the bank, and we've got that. So we're going to put that to good effect this year to really go after the landlord market. There's 2.5 million landlords just in the UK. And of course, we want to go global. So we want to go after the US, of course, and Australia and any English-speaking countries first, and then other languages in the future. But we've now got our app. We're working with about 5 or 10 what I call sort of super users. And these are other landlords who are helping us really shape the product, make sure we've got the features and the functionality in there correctly. And that's really what we've been doing for the last 12 months, building the app, getting the functionality right. And then next year, now we've got the funding in, it's all about growth and really scaling our product up in the market.
Very good. And how big is your team?
At the moment, it's pretty small. I've got a team of 4 full-time developers, and I've just hired a new mobile developer. Hopefully we'll start tomorrow. And then I've got 1 person on the marketing and business development side, and I've got another full-time co-founder who's about to join the business full-time in January. So we're slowly but surely building up into a reasonable sized team now.
Very good. How did you come up with the idea?
Good question. Well, I've been a landlord myself for about 20 odd years. And the problem I had was that I couldn't find one system that would actually allow me to manage all this stuff in one place. I was using QuickBooks for my finances. I was using homemade spreadsheets and homemade databases. I was using my calendar to sort of remind me about stuff. And I just couldn't find a software package where I could put all this stuff in one place. And that was the idea about AlphaLets. And when I spoke to other landlords, it seemed that this was a pretty common problem. And the market is now ready for new types of technology. So I think our timing has been absolutely great. And my background is in technology. I've spent all my working life in the UK and also out in Silicon Valley for 9 years. So I love tech and I love property, and being able to put them both together was really great timing. So we're really excited about the future.
Very cool. And next year, how do you come up with your goals, and do you have like a framework that you use to create those plans and vision?
The thing about landlords is there's lots of different types of landlords. So even though there's millions of them out there, some people are focused on student accommodation, some people are focused on more apartments or houses or duplexes. And so we're really the first thing we're trying to do is really make sure we understand our user base. Who is the best profile of user that we want to go after, and that's sort of being defined through the 5 or 10 users that we're using today. So we really want to go out and find more of them. We're looking at the right channels to get our message out. We've got a lot to do on branding because obviously we're a new company, so we're working hard to get our message out and our brand awareness. So it's all about that. It's going to be getting the message out, building on what we've got, making sure we have a really slick website. We probably haven't done enough on the website, so we're going to be really homing in on making that look fantastic and making sure we have a very clear message. And then just looking to scale out through that user base.
Got it. Richard, thank you so much for this.
Thank you very much. Great to speak to you.
Alrighty, I see a bunch of people commenting here. Thank you so much. Excited. Kevin, very nice to see you. How are the things in, I think, Colombia? You travel a lot. My next speaker, for some reason, is not joining, but this is a perfect timing for me to share a little bit more about how I think the plans for New Year can go. And overall, I think annual plans are still hard to come up with and just overall plan for, because you don't know what's going to happen in 12 months, right? Like COVID hit, and then every plan is just goes nowhere. So my goal is, last year I've done a session, I'm not sure if anyone watched this, but last year I called it a supercharged 4 weeks. Instead of doing a plan for the entire year, we create our goals for entire year. Yes, you can think and what it is that you want next year to bring. And I suggest that you come up with the goals, not just for your company growth, but then there's health goals, there's your company goals, and then there's also relationship goals, right? And then self-improvement, what it is that you want to achieve next year. So let's think about all of those areas of opportunity and growth that we can work on. And I would suggest just come up with your goal for each one of those items. And then instead of creating a plan for the entire year, I call this supercharged 4 weeks. So you create a plan just for the next month. And so you create like 3 main goals that you'd like to achieve in the next month, and you brain dump all of your tactics and plans and how you want to achieve that. And then you split it by weeks, and then you split it by month. And so I call it supercharged 4 weeks because, and I created this after reading, can't remember the writer's name, but it is 12-week year, I think. Highly recommend for anyone to take a look. Another book that I would highly recommend is Finish. Can't remember the writer's name. I'm really bad with names, as you can tell. But those are the 2 books that I highly recommend to check out. By the way, I've mentioned the Finish book in a summary of books for this year. I finished 100 books this year. 100 books. It was not my intention. I didn't expect, or I didn't try, but I finished 100 books. And so I recommended just 10 of those. I think Finish is one of those 10s. 12-week year was, I think, under my last year recommendation. So go ahead and check it out. It is under natalieloniva.com. But so the plan again is you create those goals to achieve in the next 4 weeks. You brain dump a huge list of all the tactics and things that you'd like to accomplish as tasks and projects. And then you execute on those. And as far as execution, I would highly recommend that there is a 5-step process. Number 1 is, for 20 minutes in the beginning of every single week, you review your past week's progress and you plan for the next week. So I think this planning is something that does not happen a lot of times, and we just work, and we do not take time to think about what it is that we do. Is it just busy work, or is it actually productive and strategic work? Next is 5 minutes at the beginning of every single day, you review your weekly goals and plan for day's activities. Overall, I suggest that you have your plans for this week or the entire month laid out in the beginning, and you do not try not to change that. But if you have to, you can shift around. Next, you do not end the day until the things that you have planned are accomplished. And I think this is a bigger one, because a lot of times we just think that, hey, I can do it tomorrow. But then tomorrow you have another list of things that you need to work on. And I think this pushes us to prioritize our work. And instead of doing busy work, you're actually doing work that is actually going to do something for your business. And then every Friday, review the week, note any wins and lessons, and plan for the next week. This is number 4. And number 5 is time block your days. I think so many founders do not take advantage of that. But if you time block your days, for example, maybe 3 hours every single day, you have a block where no one can schedule a meeting with you. And so you just work. You know that this time is just for you to accomplish those things. I think this 5-step is going to help you achieve what you'd like to achieve. Alrighty, I see a couple of my next speakers. Dmitry, it's a couple of minutes late. I don't have my next speaker, but let's go ahead. I'm going to let you in and let's see how it goes. Hi, Dmitry.
Hi, hello.
How are you?
Good.
Yes. Hey, alrighty. So do tell us about your company, where you are right now, and your plans and goals for next year.
Well, my company, my startup is based on the tourism that has to do with groups with an SaaS platform for group reservation system. We started onboarding last year. We onboarded hotels and tour operators to start cooperating with them. And the crisis, for sure, it affected us very bad in a negative way. Here's my co-founder, Katarina. Probably you can see her as well. And all the group reservation system just frozen. So what we're doing right now, we use this time because hotels and tour operators, they don't have work, but they have time to think, they have time to pivot, and they have time to onboard in our platform. So in theory, there's not much traffic inside, but we onboard every single day at a lot of hotels and a lot of tour operators. So we want to be as ready as possible when the market will start again.
So the main plan is to get traction back because Corona hit when we started to have traction in the revenue. So our hopes and our plans is to Q3, when everyone predicts that the travel market will start rising again. So we get our traction and our revenue again.
Things are beginning to warm up, right? What do you see on your end? How long do you think until you are able to get back to somewhat normal?
Normality is going to take us a couple of years, but if things they go the way that they predict, we already have some requests for the next summer, which is Q3 of 2021. So this is going to be the first time that we're going to have some first significant revenue, and we're going to have the market that's starting to move again.
Yeah, so before Q3, we think that nothing will happen. So we expect that in Q4 that the Q3 will be the beginning of the rise and Q4 will have, let's say, some amount of revenue, some amount of group bookings coming back because they don't exist since March 2020.
I'm very interested to know if any of people watching this have experience similar to that, if anyone is in the hospitality industry and how you've been dealing with that. Dmitry and Katerina, thank you so much for joining me on this call. It was fun and my pleasure.
Bye-bye.
So do put in the comment here if any of you are in the hospitality business. I have my next speaker. It is, I don't want to mispronounce the name, but I think it is, hi there, can you hear me?
Hello, hi, I can hear you.
Butcher your name? Did I butcher your name? Is it Freitas?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. It's right, yeah.
Freitas, do tell us about your company, where you are right now, and your plans for next year.
Yeah, so we Omnisend is marketing automation platform for e-commerce. So we bundle email, text messages, SMS plus MMS, and web push notifications into one platform. And due to our easy to use interface and pre-build best practices into the platform, we reduce the workload and increase sales for everyone who sell online. So that's what we do. Currently, we are around getting close to 20 million ARR, 105 people at the moment, and growing, of course. And we are bootstrapped, so really proud of that. And in 2021, we have a very ambitious goal to triple our revenue and customer count and double our head count. And that's the goal, very ambitious goal. But we're making plans to accomplish that.
Can you mention again where you are right now so that I can have a better understanding of, you say triple?
Yes. Yeah. So currently we are almost 20 million annual recurring revenue, US dollars.
Very cool. And how are you planning to achieve such a growth?
Yeah, so we have three main areas to work on. So definitely attract new customers. Second one, to reduce our churn by 20%, and the logo churn is net dollar retention is pretty good. And the third thing is really to help our customers, existing customers, grow. As our customers are paying us per mainly subscriber list. So if those customers who stay with us, they have a trend to grow. And we introducing new tools them to collect either more subscribers, to add new channels, really help them to utilize more and more, and then they pay more as well. So mainly those three areas: to attract new ones, to reduce churn a little bit, and then to help existing customers to expand their businesses and as a consequence to pay
expand
as
the revenue as well, huh? That's
yeah,
very,
expand the
very good.
revenue and pay as more based on that as well.
What is your churn right now?
So the key metric we are tracking is net MRR churn. So usually it's negative, like 1 to 3% monthly negative. So we call it like, we mainly track net dollar retention. So how much of existing customers do pay more comparing to previous month. So it's like 1 to 3% more. Logo churn is way bigger. It's churn. So like 3 to sometimes even to 7%. It really varies month by month because we're serving like SMB sector. So logo churn is pretty big. But those, as I said, who stay with us, they grow.
Very, very cool. And how big is your team?
105 people.
That is unbelievable. I cannot imagine being the CEO of a 100 people company. What is your structure?
And it grew by 80%, like from 60 something to like 100. I'm looking forward to double that in 2021.
I know some founders who say that they would hate to manage and have such a big team. How do you handle having such a big team? What's your structure?
It's a transformation. It's a process. As we are two co-founders, main co-founders, so we have started as a really small team of 8 people, and we still remain in leading positions currently. So we try to keep the organization as lean as possible. So we have quite many like VPs within the organization. At the same time, we just try to eliminate like too many levels in order to avoid like misconceptions, miscommunication, and information and decisions not being made. So we have sales, we have marketing, we have partnerships, we have engineers, we have SRE, like site reliability and infrastructure teams. We have, of course, engineering, product design, product management teams. So those are kind of like independent teams and serving in a bit larger cross-functional pods to accomplish like different tasks throughout the time. And I mean, it's not stable. It's pretty flexible, and it's being reshuffled time by time, the entire structure. The needs at that specific moment, the best.
Yep. And when did you start your company?
Almost 7 years ago. Yeah.
Okay, so this has been a long ride.
Yes, that's true.
When did you start seeing this pivot? Like you can see something is happening, the traction is happening. What do you think helped cause this? What would you suggest founders do to identify what it is that's going to help them grow?
It took us 24 months to understand if there is a product market fit and for what our customers are willing to pay us. So initial 24 months, it was like basically just experimenting. Then I would say additional 18 months or so, that was kind of initial traction was there, and then we took off. So, I mean, that's not a secret. In our case, MailChimp was really, really, and still is a player in generic marketing automation or email marketing field, but they were focusing on e-commerce a bit, but they changed this focus. They shifted, and that's what opened new horizons for Omnisend and some of our rivals as well, as we're focusing on that specific niche, online merchants. So that opened new horizons for us. So in our case, strategic patience and our readiness to take the advantage when it comes and the opportunity when it comes was the most important for us.
I find that so many founders maybe just a little bit too impatient. And so they're like, okay, I've been at this for 12, 18 months. This is not working. Let me try something else. Let me develop another product. And this is what I call a curse of knowing how to develop things. Like if something is not getting traction, that it's much easier for developers to just abandon the idea and go develop something new.
Yeah, that's true. But if that's what they say for the team. So if attraction is 0, so you can't optimize it. Like you can multiply 0 by any amount, you're going to get 0. But if there is any traction, so basically you can optimize it till, if it's at least 1, you can optimize it to 100, 1,000, 1 million, etc. So if you don't see any signs of interest within the market, so maybe it's really time to ditch the idea and to find a new one. But if you have an initial traction, so better stick to that and then find and wait, be smart, at the same time patient, and you're gonna find the moment where it can take off. That would be my advice.
I read a comment, strategic patient. That's profound. I agree. That's a good term. Also, take a look at the book called Deep by Seth Godin. And I think that this is exactly in his book. He talks about this, like at what point do you keep grinding and keep working on something if something doesn't work? Like, do you stop? At what point do you stop? You decide that this is not working at all. So it looks like you were able to figure things out. And then
it worked at some extent. So basically we just needed to accelerate that, to wait for a perfect moment to do that. It was not zero, something was working. So basically it was the tipping point to accelerate things.
And then in the last couple of years, did you see that? What was your growth path in the last couple of years?
So we doubled in 2020 revenue. We tripled in 2019. We doubled in 2018. So yeah. And before that, the numbers were way smaller.
Yeah.
So, and as I said, like for around 2 years, I believe 100,000 ARR, then another couple of years maybe to triple this, so to double this. And then starting from 2018, it went to like doubling, tripling path.
Very cool. Folks who are watching this, do drop your questions in the comments. We do have a couple more minutes. If you have any questions to read us about either growth or whatever numbers you want to check with him or any recommendation, do drop it in the chat. This is I try to make it a very collaborative call. And that's why I invite so many founders to help us give this perspective from different angles. Do you think that there is any other topics that founders would benefit from for you to share?
But no, again, maybe it's about exactly the same. So you have always to be ready. Maybe just to add on that, as like the shift in MailChimp strategy when it happened, and the clash between that was caused, or like the shift in the strategy caused the clash between Shopify and the MailChimp, which we benefited a lot. So at the same time, there were like quite many competitors of us. So I would say like two companies really benefited from that, us and one major rival, and the rest, they just got nothing out of that because they were not ready for that. So like adding on that strategic patience, so you have always to be ready if success comes. You have to be able to accommodate that. Otherwise, that's just come and go.
Got it. Well, Rytis, thank you so much for all of your wisdom. This has been fun talking to you.
Thanks for inviting. It's a great show. Keep doing that.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Bye.
Alrighty. My next speaker. Now, the reason that I wasn't sure is, Mohammed, you used Mohammed when you were filling out the form, and now you are joining as Umar. So it is hard for me to understand who is who, and I'm going by your first name that you used to fill out the contact, the application form for this interview. So that's why, apologies, I did not let you in early, and it just occurred to me that Mohammed and Umar is probably the same thing. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for inviting me and for making a platform to learn and listen to the other SaaS founders.
Thank you so much for taking the time to share your expertise. Do let us know the company that you're with. What was your growth this year, and what are your plans for the next year?
Okay, so I'm the co-founder of SocialBoo, and SocialBoo is a social media management and automation platform which lets people to manage their Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Google My Business accounts from one place. So currently we have more than 8,000 users, and our ARR is about $50,000. So our plans for 2021 is to grow at 50% monthly growth rate is we projected to grow. And yes, to achieve these goals, we have this main 4 bullish points to grow through online communities, SEO, and especially we are currently testing the Facebook paid ads as well. Yeah.
Very cool. And how was your growth last year? When did you launch, and how was your growth?
Okay, so we officially launched in February 2019. And after that, our average growth rate was about 30%. Yeah. So to boost this growth rate, we have also prepared a specific team for the partnerships to collaborate with other businesses, and also our complementary products that are already in the market to get the users from there as well.
And how big is your team?
Okay, so currently we have total 11 people in our team. Yeah. So four co-founders, and the others are our employees right now.
Sounds good. And your growth last year, I'm not sure if I missed that. What was the trajectory for last year? Do you see that there is some tipping point coming?
Yes, definitely. I think in August it was like one of the best month for our growth, and because and in the March there was also a peak. Another peak was we see in due to the COVID, there were a lot of people work from home, and the tools like Socialboo was one of the tool that helped them to manage their social media stream and also keep their social media alive. So that's why we see a peak in the March and also another peak in August. So yeah.
Very good. We have one question. How did you get your initial users, paid or organic?
Okay. So it's actually, first of all, we first test out the product. Like we participated in different online communities like Quora and also especially in Reddit communities. So we made a basic tool for the Facebook group posting, and also asked the users to test it out and either they are willing to pay for it or not. So we get a lot of good response from there, and then we decided that this is the one area we can go and work on this. So online communities was one of our initial channel to get first traction of the users. Yeah.
Very good. I think that was very helpful. I find that so many founders think that PPC is the answer. Well, they don't have yet enough traction, and so get in this community. And that I'm exactly of the same mind. Like use Facebook groups, use those core posts to try and get initial traction, to see what concerns they have, what problems they have, and see if you can help them with your solution.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you so much for your feedback. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Alrighty, and my next speaker is Tom Logan. Hi there.
Hi, Natalie. How are you?
Doing good. How are you, Tom?
And how's it going?
Going great. Alrighty, so do tell us about your company. How was 2020 for you, and what are your plans for next year?
Yeah, so Kohli is a content generation platform. It's a two-sided marketplace with a SaaS model, of course. And basically what we do is help primarily D2C brands generate content. So photos, videos, and product reviews that they'll then acquire ownership of and utilize across digital channels. So primarily Facebook, TikTok, on their website, in emails and SMS. We give them all the content they need to test and drive better results. You want to hear about 2020?
Do tell me.
2020, my gosh. We had about a 3-month period where we obviously were dealing with a lot of stalled marketing budgets, primarily sell-to marketers, and we were completely frozen. And then what we saw is this massive acceleration within the e-commerce space. So, by many estimates, we've accelerated within the space by about 4 to 6 years past projections. And, marketers are buying again. So people came back in full force, and our sales velocity picked up, and our ACV went up, and things more than stabilized. For sure, it was a very interesting year.
And which month was that when you started seeing that things are getting stable a little bit?
I think it was probably, it was like last week of May or so. So we deferred a bunch of agreements there, which we really had no other option. It was either churn or defer. So we tried to play the long game with them, and I think it was the only move we could make.
How was your growth year over year for 2020 compared to previous year?
Yeah, it's going to end up being right around 75%, slightly below targets simply because of the deferred agreements. So it was a healthy chunk of the business. But we're extremely ambitious going into 2021. And I think the market is enthusiastic and ready to go.
So how are you planning? What are your goals for next year, and how you're planning to achieve it?
Yeah, 100% year-over-year growth is what we're aiming for. Another set of goals around ACV, deal win rate throughout the entire process, which of course is a metric that every SaaS founder is familiar with. But a big thing for us is continuing to focus on our ideal customer profile, which essentially took us 4 years to learn. But the difference between churn and overall performance between these two customer segments, ICP versus non-ICP, which is really SMB, it has been a stark difference.
So it took you 4 years to get initial traction, or at least learn about your ideal customer?
Yeah, not to get traction. We were about 2.5 million in ARR when we finally had enough data, or maybe it was just me being a little slow to recognize, like, wow, we're dealing with two completely different customer segments here. And once we finally just had that come to Jesus moment and understood that, I mean, that's made a huge difference for our business.
What would you say you could do differently now that you know that there was something very obvious? Because this is exactly what we struggle with our SaaS. Like in one day, we were able to find something that we could not see in a year that, we should have seen. Like it was right there. We just didn't take time to look at things, I guess.
Isn't it incredible? Yeah, and sometimes the data is right in front of your face, and we bring our own biases as founders, right? We don't always look with the most objective eyes at these things, but once we realize that difference in customer segments, I mean, it really does inform everything, right? Like I think if there's one thing I'd want people to take away from our session here, it's look at your client base, see if you can group them into cohorts. And once you understand which cohort has the highest lifetime value, customer acquisition cost that's fairly reasonable, and also isn't draining your customer support resources, double down on that. Double down on that. Understand who those customers are, where they spend their time, what events they go to, and do everything in your power to bring those clients on board.
What are some other metrics that you measure? You've mentioned ACV, LTV, win rate.
Yeah, gosh. I mean, there's quite a few. I mean, lifetime value to CAC, to customer acquisition cost, is certainly big. We want to keep that at right around 3-to-1. When we raised our last fundraising round, we were actually closer to 8-to-1. And a lot of people told us within the raise process, like, hey, that's great, but you should actually be spending more money to acquire customers. 8-to-1 is actually a little too good. You're going to keep it closer to 3-to-1. So instead of bragging about that, maybe stop being so darn conservative with your cash allocation. So, I mean, that's a big one. Of course, looking at churn by segment is massive. Looking at the ways, the levers in which we were able to upsell clients. Gosh, I mean, yeah, quota attainment for the sales team, so many different ones. But I think LTV to CAC and measuring churn, not just overall, but by cohort, is really important for us.
How big is your team right now?
We are at 42. With an 11-person sales team.
Very cool.
Yeah.
People who watch this, do drop your questions in the comments here. I would really want to make it a little bit more conversational, not just me asking questions. So do let me know what questions you have for Tom, because I think this is a very interesting and very smart conversation where we talk about the metrics and segmenting our customers to identify what is our ideal niche. And I think this is very valuable. Again, like I said, we have not done ourselves this early enough, and so definitely something that I would highly recommend for everyone to check out. So if we were to put it a little bit in like a framework, so let's say that what are some items that we check off, that we check? For example, maybe we check our churn rate by segment, we check our number of tickets and support tickets.
I would say the easiest way, and that's great. Look at customer support bandwidth. So that's just simply looking at tickets or time spent is massive. Really, you want to have if you're implying the customer success model, you really want to have at least $500,000 in ARR dedicated to individual customer success people. Ideally, closer to $1 million. But let's see, tickets are great, and then just start out by looking at get it on paper. Look at your client base. Look at the commonalities of them. What we noticed was that the biggest differentiator was simply around company size. What do they do annually in revenue? If they're under that 5 million threshold, that was not a good thing for us. An easier way to measure it, actually, given the fact that private company data is very difficult to access, do it by employee count. So we said anyone under 15 employees is not in our ideal customer profile. So once we're able to do that, we were able to get slightly more granular. We tag those opportunities accordingly, starting as soon as they're entered into our CRM. And then we have specific tracking for our sales team to ensure that at least 70% of our aggregate sales pipeline is is in that ideal customer profile, so that we don't make the same mistake again, essentially.
Very good. Tom, thank you so much for this feedback and your time.
Thank you, Natalie. Have a great day.
So one huge takeaway that I would want everyone to take from this session right now is, if you don't have a lot of companies, like we were not even, for our SaaS, we were not even aware that there is a segment that is prevalent in our client base, that there's a niche that we have the most of, just because, first of all, they did not ask any questions. We did not do demos with them. They sign up without, any questions. They did not ask for a discount. So we were not even aware what kind of companies those are until we categorized by industry and niche what those companies are, and then counted them. And it turns out that we have majority of this industry, and we were not even aware of that because they don't ask any questions, they don't submit tickets, they're happy, they have enough technical information, and they have a technical team to implement the things, so they did not have to ask all of those questions. So I feel like we were not aware that this segment was our best segment because we didn't hear from them. So I do highly encourage you all to just count all of those industries. If you don't have it already, then start adding this industry when you close a new client. Make sure that you add what the industry they're with, and then calculate how many of each industry you have. And then I really like the idea of segmenting them. So you don't look at your churn rate entirely, you look at your churn rate by cohort. So I think this is also very, very important. And then we also realized that that particular industry that we have not heard from, that they did not submit tickets, they did everything themselves, they churned the least, and they were getting the most profit to us because we also had revenue expansion model, which is pretty amazing. And it pains me that we did not catch this sooner. Looks like I lost my next speaker, as I know that you've joined and now I am not able to see you. So do request to join back, and then I'm gonna let you in. In the meantime, for everyone watching this, do drop your questions or comments. And also, I would really want to hear your perspective. First of all, what it is that you're trying to get from this session right now? What do you want to learn? How do you want to implement this? Do drop it in the comment. I really want to hear this so that this is going to help me ask the right questions to my speakers. I'm going to give a couple of minutes for the rest to join. I saw a comment somewhere. Tasbin, I see that you're watching. I'm not sure if you had technical problems. Let me know. I think you were supposed to be a speaker like 20 minutes ago. Do let me know if you have any technical problems. Otherwise, for all the speakers, just request to join. There you go. Tasbin, I am letting you in. Let's see if you are available. Hi there, Tasbin, can you hear me?
Hello.
Yes.
Hey.
Hey, can't see you. Can you hear Facebook Live? Otherwise, I can hear the echo there.
Hi, how is it going?
Yes, I can hear you. So do share with us what company you're with, where you are this year, and your plans for next year.
Thank you very much, Natalie, for this opportunity to talk. And co-founder and CEO of Markable AI. And we're working and we're building virtual digital marketing agent for the medium to small size businesses. And we're among the very few SaaS startups in this region, and we have started working in May, and currently our growth has been very well. And currently our focus in 2021 is going to be mostly to improve the after a pandemic, the way it hit globally the small and medium sized businesses. So we want to improve that, and we're going to make it better, and that's our aim. By 2021, our aim is to at least support 1,000 to 1,500 small businesses and help them in any manner, whether they want to do digital marketing in any kind of platform, whether it's omnichannels like Facebook, Instagram, or like Shopify, Amazon. Wherever you want to sell your product, we're going to be there for as your digital marketer. And we'll help you building your product more smoothly. And we want to provide our customer an ASAP service that as simple as possible platform, and give them the very insights they need to improve their sales and improve the customers, and to minimize the churn they're facing in the businesses.
Got it. Well, thank you so much for this. All righty. I am adding my next speaker, Ashni Shah. I apologize. Probably butchered your name.
That's all. You did a pretty good job.
Can you correct me, please?
It's Ashni.
Very good. Ashni, very nice to have you join us right now. Do share with us where you are right now, the name of the company, and what are your plans for next year?
Yeah, so hey, my name's Ashni. I'm currently based in Toronto, Canada, but I split my time between Canada and Kenya, which is where I was born and grew up. The name of my company is Hype Dogs. That's HYPEDOCS.co for the website. And you wanted me to share some of my plans for 2021? Awesome. So very quickly, Hype Dogs is a product that lets you track your achievements with the goal of increasing your confidence and beating imposter syndrome. So specifically targeting women and underrepresented folks. And my goal for 2021, or at least my goal for the immediate January month of 2021, is to try and capture all the people that are going through the resolution process of trying to make resolutions or goals, especially since we're coming off such a hard 2020 with a lot of people who have like additional mental health issues. And trying to focus on, hey, you know, there is ways for you to spin whatever it is that you have going on. And there is ways to focus on the wins that you did have this year, even though they might not seem as many. And then start working on setting those resolutions, setting those goals for next year, and finding ways to make that better for yourself and get you into a place where you're feeling more positive about the year ahead.
Alrighty. And when did you launch your company?
So we launched officially, I believe it was in August. So we're still a pretty brand new baby company by all means of the world, and working on pushing out. We had like an original website, which we relaunched like a month later to something that worked a lot better. And we're adding a lot of new features in based on customer feedback.
And what is your background?
So I'm a software developer by background. I used to work at Microsoft once upon a time and Amazon as well. And then Square most recently, which is the credit card reader. And earlier this year, I wanted to move to Toronto or back to Toronto right as the pandemic hit, and decided not to try look for a job when there were very few available, and have been on the entrepreneurial journey ever since.
Very cool. Ashni, do drop the link to your website here in the chat for Facebook Live in the chat. I was not able to get it right. So for everyone watching this, do drop it in the chat here on Facebook Live. Thank you so much for sharing this information with us.
No problem. It was
Good
lovely.
luck next year. Alrighty. And my next speaker is Arslan with a company called Linked Camp. Hi there.
How are you doing?
Doing good. How are you?
I'm fine.
Can't see your video. There you go. Yes, I can see it now. All right, Arslan, do tell us what company you're with, your progress so far this year, and your plans for next year.
Okay, I belong to Linked Camp. So we started like 1 year before. We are a LinkedIn automation company, and this year has been on and off good. But for the next year, for 2021, we have some big plans. We have a big roadmap in place. So we are working on that already, and hoping to achieve our goals by December 2021. Sorry.
So the goals you described, I think you mentioned roadmap. So you are talking more about features, but more quantitative. What are some metrics that you are hoping to achieve? Do you have revenue targets?
Well, in regards to customers, we are hoping that we can reach up to around 2,000 customers, paid customers. As of now, we have around 400 at the moment. So our target is to reach up to 2,000 by the end of 2021.
All righty, not a bad goal. So basically, quintuple your current paid customer base. Interesting. What was your growth this year?
Well, the goal this year was to reach somewhere around 500 customers. But in between we ran our lifetime deal as well. So we have some of the lifetime members on board as well. So we was able to somehow reach to our target, close to our target, not exactly, but the year was a bit good.
And when did you launch?
We launched around 6 months back. Yeah.
Very cool. Still very cool. Very nice growth trajectory. I wish you all the best, and I hope that you are going to be able to hit the goal. How big is your team?
Well, we are a team of around 5 people at the moment, which includes the development and the customer success team as well.
And are you funding your company with the revenue from the lifetime deal?
We are bootstrapping, so some of the funding from the lifetime deal as well, and some of the funds from our own funds as well. So we are bootstrapped company.
Very good. Thank you. Do let me know, everyone watching this, if you have any questions. LinkedIn Automation Company is probably the first company that I've heard of as of recently. By the way, I know that LinkedIn is not really happy with all the automations. How are you tackling this?
Well, we are providing dedicated IPs. Other than that, we have inbuilt limits, so we do not let the customers or the users to cross the limits. And other than that, we are providing dedicated IPs to make sure their accounts are safe and they are not making the use of automation in a bad perspective, but using the automation to minimize the time frame that requires to engage the people initially. So that's what the goal is, and that's how we are helping our customers to achieve their goals.
Very good. I had another question, and how did you launch? Through which company did you launch your lifetime deal?
We launched through our own website as well, and we are on the AppSumo marketplace as well.
Oh, you were on the AppSumo. How was your experience with them?
Well, for now, as of now, it's good, but we are yet to receive the funds from their side, so let's see how it goes.
And so can you tell us a little bit about the process? We still have 2 more minutes left. Tell us a little bit about the process, how you launched on AppSumo, and just overall, how long it took, how did you get the approval, and things like that.
Well, there are 2 things on AppSumo right now. There is their traditional lifetime deal, and the other thing is the marketplace. So for their traditional lifetime deals, they are booked in advance. So as per them, they are booked up to February. Other than that, for the marketplace, you get the approval within 1 week. There are forms available for that. You can submit the form. They will review your site, and it takes around 1 week for them to approve or complete the whole process, and your product goes live on marketplace.
And when did you go live?
We went live in the start of December.
All right. And how was the behavior in the beginning? Like, how many people purchased that? Did you see a big spike in the beginning, or was it quiet in the beginning and then picked up?
There is a bit of difference between the marketplace and the traditional lifetime deal. For the traditional lifetime deal, they do the marketing by themselves, for which they get like 70% of the share. For the marketplace, they do not market your product, so you have to do the market by yourself. And we was able to sell our lifetime deals with our own marketing. So there was not that much spike as you can see with the traditional lifetime deals of AppSumo, but it did well.
Very good. If anyone has any questions about lifetime deals and AppSumo, Arslan is your gentleman. So go ahead and post questions here. Thank you so much for your time, and good luck in next year.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. Have a good day.
My next speaker is Frank, and I am letting you into the Zoom chat. Hi, Frank. Can you hear me? There you go.
Hi, Natalia. How are you?
Doing good. How are you?
Doing great. Thank you. Nice to meet you.
As well. Great to see you here. Share with us what company you're with. What was your situation this year, and what are your plans next year?
Sure. So I'm with a company called Speakeasy AI, and we started as a voice AI company, a way to orchestrate different contact center technologies, starting with customer intent with a cool patented technology that we have called speech to intent, which allows you to understand customers without relying on transcription alone. What it's evolved into is we are really the don't rip and replace technology company. We're an AI company that allows you to manage both your agent pool without having to throw them in the garbage and replace them with our automation, but rather optimize them as well as optimize self-service initiatives. So this year, our company grew from pre-revenue to funding itself on revenue in the middle of a pandemic. So we're pretty happy about that. We're very fortunate and lucky to have a couple of really large Fortune 500 brands who have chosen to invest in us and trust us during sort of this really difficult year. So now we're about a 10-person company, hoping to, knock on wood, double in size next year. I think doubling would be good for us. I think if we go crazy and do triple or quadruple growth, which could be possible, it'll be a different set of challenges, but we're very excited about where we're headed into 2021.
So when did you launch again?
We officially launched in spring of 2018.
And how was your growth 2019 this year?
2019 was spent primarily on sort of product development, getting our first few pilots, getting early adopters, and trying to figure out what it is we had. You know, I'm definitely, if you're an Avengers fan, I'm more happy. CTO is more Tony Stark. So we have this brilliant developer team, and we're a developer-heavy startup in the beginning. So what's fortunate is me and my other third sort of co-founder, who was my prior CEO, we successfully exited a digital chatbot company. So we had a wonderful network of key stakeholders at certain brands that could try our product in the early days. So we were really focused in the early moment on not capturing revenue, and we were fortunate that we had a patient angel investor, but trying to figure out what is really the niche here, how is this going to work in the market, and based on that user feedback, what's the optimum solution to provide to folks. So we're very, very lucky. Not every startup has that in the beginning, for sure.
So with those plans, how are you hoping to achieve the goal?
How are we hoping to achieve the goal? It's two-pronged. So we have invested heavily in a partner community. So we are fortunate enough, because we've created this technology solution that is an orchestration technology and plays nice with others. And because we work in Fortune 500 brands and don't make you rip and replace your whole contact center stack, we found a couple of strategic partners that share a similar value proposition to us, but maybe have more feet on the ground in sort of large contact center solution or companies. So we're betting big on partners next year, as well as now rebranding our messaging and our narrative to more accurately reflect the last 2 years of learning. So we're pivoting quickly on our message. Like, you go to our website now, it says voice experiences, voice, voice, voice. And we're really strong at voice, but there's so much more that we can provide to the market. And we're going to sort of fine tune our narrative next year as well.
Very, very cool. Tell us a little bit more about your partnerships and the community that you're trying to build. Is it more from your experience working on previous companies, or what are you doing because partnerships is in and of itself, right? It's just a whole different beast.
Yep. Yeah. And we're not trying to sort of create an app exchange community that's sort of a stale, hey, we have all these things on the shelf and figure out our partner ecosystem and download things. That's not a living, breathing thing. I think we were very fortunate in our early days when we founded the company. We brought on our first team member that we brought on was a former buyer of ours. So my recommendation to a startup would be, if you can actually get a former buyer or your target buyer on your team, the actual person, do that. So he helped us understand, as well as our first few clients, what kinds of partnerships were real and viable, as opposed to that, hey, let's get a referral spiff, let's put you on a shelf, let's put you on our app exchange. So for us, we only have 2 partners. After going through this, and we had to learn it, because most people say, sign this agreement, make your app easy downloadable, put it in our app exchange, and then we'll call you if there's any deals done, and just give us the money. We're trying to actually have strategic co-selling opportunities where we walk in and we know the same exact buyer by name. So we know Mary from this large Fortune 500 company, and Mary knows both of us, and we connect the dots. So it's that granular and that specific and relationship oriented, as well as strategic from a corporate strategy perspective. And we helped see that from having a buyer on our team in the early days. He could sort of help us understand the plan of, when vendors play nice together, this is what that looks like, compared to loosely coupled relationship-wise, but technically integrated products that are just downloaded through a Salesforce app exchange, not to pick on Salesforce. Those are 2 different beasts. So for us, it's not, hey, we have a channel rep and we have a place to register leads and this kind of mature channel organization. We're actually looking at very specific strategic partners for next year.
Very cool. Well, good luck next year. Hopefully your goals are going to be, you'll be able to hit.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Nice to meet you, Natalia.
Nice
Take care.
You. Thanks.
Have a great day.
All righty. That was interesting. I am letting my next speaker in, and that's Lisa V. Hi, Lisa.
Hello.
All right. Can't see you just
Hi,
yet.
can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, great. I can't hear you. Let me see if I can fix that.
How about now?
Oh, perfect. Hello.
Very good. Now we can't see you, so if you can turn on your camera or try to do something. If it's not working, hey, never mind. That's okay. We're still happy to hear you. You share with us what company you're with and what was your trajectory this year and what are your goals and plans for next year.
Wonderful. Hi, everyone. My name is Lisa Thie, and I am playing with my camera, so that's a little bit distracting. So, yeah, I am the leader of Launch Consulting's Data for Good Practice. And at Launch, I help the most innovative healthcare and technology companies to accelerate their goals to use AI and software to improve digital safety, as well as dealing with challenges of innovation and making sure that we get elimination of bias in the work that we do.
So I'm trying to find your website. Can you drop it somewhere here?
Absolutely. Happy to do that. Yeah. So according to Forbes, 1 in 4 women want to start a business post-pandemic. So this year, I've been really focused on helping to build entrepreneurship courses specifically for women with a female founder Emily Kennedy. We've both run successful AI startup companies in the areas of trust and safety, and we wanted to bring more innovation and entrepreneurship to women. So we're really focused in 2021 about scaling our e-course, Spark Passion. It's really focused on helping women who are maybe successful in corporate America that are looking to make that pivot to entrepreneurship and launch their own SaaS companies like we were able to do back in 2018.
How did you come up with the idea?
As founders ourselves, we found when we jumped in feet first, we were a little bit out of the woods in terms of knowing the right terminology, the right networks, the right tactics to be successful ourselves. And what we found is being both female AI startup founders, both successful social impact founders, and both women that were able to not only raise money, but lead and have successful exits. We wanted to help fast track other women that were starting on that journey with some of the tips and tricks we wish we knew at the beginning that made it a little bit more challenging than it needed to be. So we wanted to really, especially post-pandemic, help empower women who have been leading from the seat that they're in to take control and become founders themselves.
Very noble goal. Thank you so much for doing that. Anything that you'd like to share with the community? Any learnings?
Yeah, so we do have a free course available on free resources to turn your idea into a business at sparkpassion@teachable.com. You can also follow us at www.lisathie.com, and there you can access some of our courses. We really love to be at that intersection of social impact and business success and really help people to bring more mission to their day in, day out work. And we believe that SaaS companies are one of the fastest ways that women can drive that kind of impact and lead right from the boardroom into their bedroom and go start kicking butt and taking names and seeing the change they want to see in the world, make it happen.
Very good. Lisa, do drop links to those websites that you mentioned here in the comment to Facebook Live. I see a few questions here, so do drop them there. Probably lots of people would be interested to check it out.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
You. Absolutely.
Oh, sorry, my technology is not working today. I even did my makeup.
It's 2020. Hey, you can post a photo of yourself here in the chat in the comments so that at least everyone can see your face and see your makeup.
Absolutely.
So
I love it.
Not in vain. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Cheers. That was funny. I even put on my makeup. All righty. I am letting in my next speaker. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more speakers left for this session. Chris, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Very good. Chris, welcome to the session. Let us know what company you're with. How was 2020 for you? And what are your goals for next year?
So I am with OnboardList. I'm the founder. And we're a SaaS company that helps other SaaS companies to activate more new users. So we're an onboarding tool. And our secret sauce is that we let SaaS companies set up personalized checklists for their new users that send out targeted reminder emails.
Very cool. I definitely heard about you, and I think we connected sometime in the past. Very cool. When did you launch?
So I created a prototype about a year ago and got some feedback from doing demos for potential new users, but I figured out that I needed to go back to the drawing board a bit and rework my feature set. So we haven't launched yet. We're going to launch next month and start taking on beta users in a private beta next month. So that's the big goal for 2021, is to actually launch our product and get our first paying customer.
Very cool. And what is your background, and how did you, are you building this by yourself?
So I did something a little crazy that I haven't heard of anyone doing before, which is recruit 8 interns to help me relaunch the product. And a big reason for that was actually the pandemic and getting a little bored and lonely just working from my house as a solo founder. So I feel like it really helped me get, re-energized for the product and just make it a lot more fun to work with a team. So I've got 4 engineering interns, 1 product manager / operations intern, 1 UI UX intern, and 2 digital marketing interns.
That is true. Have not heard of anyone doing that. Do you pay them?
No, not yet. Hopefully one day. But they're all, working day jobs for the most part, or looking for day jobs in the industry. So it's been a way to help them get up to speed for what they want to be their new career, or to, move up in level of responsibility or whatever their goal is. I'm trying to help them achieve that while they help me launch OnboardList.
So it is a headache for a lot of founders to hire and work with people who are already experienced, let's say, working with developers or hiring a marketing person, but hiring someone who does not have any experience working on a team and, doing things that all of us know how to do. This is new for them. So how do you manage to manage those people?
Patience has been the key. I feel like sometimes, we can be very deliberate in our goals as founders, and I've just found that being flexible and being patient has been the key, because it is challenging where, everyone else is learning their role. I'm learning my role as a leader because I haven't led a large team before. And so I think just allowing time and space for us to all, learn our jobs and kind of let things happen in a more organic way rather than trying to set hard deadlines and be inflexible, which I think is part of being a startup in general, right? Is being flexible.
Got it. And what are your ambitious goals for next year as far as numbers, growth, customers?
I've been thinking about that, and it's hard to come up with a specific number when I haven't launched yet, is what I'm feeling. Because if we were on some kind of growth track already, it'd be easier to project out and say, okay, like we want to get this many more users because we're growing at this rate and maybe we want to improve a bit. But starting from scratch, I feel like it's difficult to set specific goals. But we already have about 50 people on an email list who have signed up to be notified when we launch. So our initial goal is, I think, to just get our first 10 paying customers, because that's a number I hear thrown around a lot. Is like, okay, if you can get 10 people to pay for your product, then you have something that works, that the market's willing to pay for. So I think our initial goal is more validation and just getting like those first 10 users. And then on top of that, I think it'd be great if we could make it to like 100 users by the end of the year.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right, Chris, good luck with your goals. Hopefully you'll be able to hit it. Thanks a lot for
Yeah, thanks so much.
So in my opinion, I do think that there needs to be some goals put in place. Otherwise, you don't know what you and where you shoot for and what it is that you're trying to achieve. Because if you don't have the goals, you do not push too hard to achieve the goals. Let's say that maybe some goals are unrealistic, but let's put something in place that is going to be realistic. And then at least this way, you'll know, okay, I'd like to make 50 sales in the next 3 months. For that, let's say for every sale, it takes me 10 demos. For every demo, it takes me 20 cold outreach on LinkedIn or 20 comments on Quora or something like that, or posts in the Facebook groups. And so this way you are able to reverse engineer your goals. And so you know what your activities need to be. I am not sure if this is going to be my next speaker. So the language that you use for your name, I cannot read. Let's see if I'm going to give it a shot. Let's see if this is going to be our next speaker. Hi there. Can you hear us?
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Can you share your name with us, please?
My name is Alicia. I'm working for a prop tech company.
Thank you. Absolutely. Now I see Alicia. What website? Can you drop it somewhere, either here on Facebook or here in the chat on Zoom, and I'll share it with the rest because I don't have the name of the company that you are with.
Oh, okay. Maybe it was missing because CronChain.io, and also we have .com.
Very good. All right. So do tell us, when did you launch? A little bit about both of the companies, and then how was this year and your plans for next year?
Right. Actually, we are at the pre-seed stage. That means we haven't launched yet. But honestly, I've been working on this project for almost 2 years as a business strategist. And actually, we are building a platform which you can digitize your assets, even like your cars or even property or even the luxury bags. But honestly speaking, now we are turning 2021 as a new, but still the people are thinking that digital currency is still a long way to go. But we are now making it possible. And also, as our first project, which is connected to the CronChain, we are building the product which you can sell and invest in the property. So I always ask people if we can own or buy a property without the lottery win. But now it's possible because we are using the blockchain technology. So that means you can fractional investing into the property. And well, keep saying that this year the challenge was we are only thinking about the investors as the users, because they are going to invest in our company and also the property. However, the challenging point was we didn't really think about the property owners who's also going to be our customers. So that was the challenging point. So for the next year, we have to provide some more values to those property owners. Then they can sell their properties through our platform.
Got it. And what are your goals for next year?
As I said, we are still at pre-seed stage, and we also got 50 beta test users. So that was our achievement for this year. But we are going to get 1,000 initial users for this. That will be quite challenging because getting the users, at the growth point, getting the users is really, really hard. But my challenge for next year will be using the PPC and SEO, because I used to work as a digital marketer at an e-commerce company. So my experience will be really helpful, I think.
Okay, well, good luck with the goal. Hopefully you'll be able to hit it. Good luck with your funding. Keep us posted.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Alrighty, my next speaker is Sebastian, and Sebastian is with a company called TakeTask.com. Hi there. Alrighty, very nice to see you here. So tell us a little bit about TakeTask, where you are right now and your plans for next year.
Generally, 2 words about TakeTask. It's remote. It's a platform application for monitoring of tasks, business tasks. It's for shop floor workers, for factory workers, or other people in other industries. We have 15 enterprise clients and 1 public one, which is the Polish government, with our COVID quarantine monitoring application, which is also TakeTask task management system. And we'll close the year with something like 1.1 or 1.2 million in revenue. So this is the basic information. Do you want to ask some detailed question, or would you like me to just elaborate?
No, just go ahead and share maybe how you achieved your growth this year and what are your plans for next year.
So this year was a bit specific because we did not plan to go into the public sector. We actually were concentrated on enterprise and sales, and we are still. But when the COVID came, we had the opportunity, or rather we were seeking for different opportunities how to use our software. And we came to the government, the Polish government said that it's very easy to launch a COVID quarantine application with our system. And this is how we got the contract for something like a few €100,000. So this helped us a lot to increase the revenue, of course, because in Q1 and beginning of Q2, there was no much business on the enterprise side. But now it's growing relatively well. We have more tasks, we have more implementations also in other countries. So the 2021 is quite positive.
Very cool. So do you have a specific numbers that you're trying to hit?
Yeah, we would, there are 2 scenarios. One of them is without investment, and the other one was with investment, because we opened like a month ago our pre-round for 2 million. If we manage to close this round till April, we should have a 3-fold increase. If not, we plan to have something like a 2-fold increase in.
All righty. Good luck with that. I see that Gregor joined this session. So Gregor, you might be interested to join to connect with Sebastian. Maybe there is an opportunity for you just to collaborate with the fellow founder. Very nice to see you, Sebastian. Thanks so much for sharing the story. All righty. And my next speaker is it Say? Very nice to see you, Sebastian. All righty, there you are. Yes, very nice to see you. How are you?
I'm feeling great. A little bit of warning. I've got 2 5-year-olds running around upstairs. So you either might hear them or they might run around downstairs in just their underwear. 2020
sounds good. All righty. So do tell us a little bit about your company, about your this year and the next year plans.
Sure. So I guess unlike for most people, right, our year this year was pretty horrible, right, financially. We are in the events industry, so we have two SaaS products that are focused to photo booth companies and event photography companies. So as anybody knows, you can't do events this year. So a lot of our customers have been doing really badly. As a result, it's affected our bottom line. But fortunately, 8 or 9 months ago, I think about 8 months ago, we were able to pivot to a virtual product. Long story short, we do photo booth software, right? So we were able to pivot to a virtual photo booth product. So a lot of our customers have started having success with virtual photo booths because events have now gone virtual. Initially, we were definitely forecasting strong growth last year. For this year rather. COVID gave it a turn for us. But coming into 2021, we're very optimistic about, how things, even if things remain under lockdown for us, the way that virtual is starting to go for us, we're very optimistic that we'll at least reach what our previous revenue was and then be able to continue surpassing it as things go.
Cool. And when did you launch your company?
So about maybe 7 years ago. So you can do the math on that. What is this? Yeah, so I guess 2013. Oh, yeah, is that 2013?
It's very interesting to talk to companies that are older companies that have been in business for at least a few years to hear their stories about pivoting and struggles. Like I mentioned before, a lot of founders think that, hey, it's been 12 months and nothing works, and so I'm just going to abandon the idea. What was the path for you? Did you find that it took you a while to get traction and figure out your ideal customer audience?
So we have two SaaS products within this field, right? The first product that we launched, we got traction pretty quickly, but it was easy because there was only one competitor that was in the field. So, I don't have a technical background. I have a very limited technical background. Coming into this, I probably knew how to make a HTML website, right, from scratch. That was like the extent of my skills. Everything else was really just me learning. So I was like, it kind of challenged myself. I was like, all right, I've got $3,000. Can I go in and make a competitive product for this, against this company that's kind of been in our industry for maybe 5 years at this point? Long story short, it took me about $15,000 before I had a product that was able to be sellable. And even that product was trash. But then, within that first month of me selling it, we made about 40 or 50,000. And I took that money and I reinvested it all back into the business, into the software, to actually get a software that was stable, that people could actually go out and then not want to call me and kill me because they spent money and the application wasn't working. But so we were able to find our customer pretty quickly and then, take that money and continue reinvesting it. We weren't a SaaS initially. It was just, a standalone product that you paid for the license one time. But again, I didn't really understand software. I didn't understand the different pricing structures. And then once I started reading about, I was like, what the hell? Why didn't I do this a long time ago, right? Recurring revenue, it's predictable. And it's beautiful. I love SaaS. So that's always been solid for us. So because we were kind of in the industry, right, I was always looking at, okay, what's another product that we can create that's, that can apply to the same, user base? So we took the idea of Canva, right? And then we applied Canva to the photo booth industry. So Canva's general templates for everybody's industry. We created templates specifically for photo booth people. We've got a few hundred customers that pay us for our primary product. So I had over 100 people who told me, yes, as soon as this is ready, we will sign up and we will buy it. I spent $60,000, right, to develop this right at the onset. And when I came to call and get the money from those people, they were nowhere to be found. And I was like, 60,000, depending on where you are in life, it's not that much, but at the same time, it's also a lot of money. So I was like, all right, I could have invested that. I could have taken that money outside of my current industry and gone and done something else. I could have invested in real estate. I'm just looking at all of these dollars and everything else I could have done with it, except for what I'm currently doing with it now, or what I was doing with it then. So it took a long time for that particular, and I say a long time in comparison to the initial product. It took a long time to gain traction. But once it finally gained traction and we got the product customer fit, very happy with the product. It's very limited hands-on, like it's very, very low maintenance as far as what it is that we typically do. And it's extremely profitable in that sense, but it takes a while, but it's been a great journey. So don't give up. You might want to give up, but don't give up. Just stick to it. If you believe in it, continue to stick to it.
So what are your plans for next year again?
Throw a party as soon as Corona's over. That's the first thing. But ultimately, we're just going to stick to the course. We haven't, even for me as a founder, I took a lot of, I kind of took the last 2 years off, just, mentally, just to have like a break from everything. So I really wasn't as hands-on with the business as I could have been. So I guess I want to say it's important for you guys to always make sure that you keep your mental health is a top priority. Don't let work stress you guys out. Take the breather when you need it. I personally took a 2-year break. So as I was getting into it, right, this is me getting back into the game, ready to start. All of a sudden, Corona. No, we can't run anymore. Everybody sit down for a little bit. But I mean, I'm back in it. A part of me speaking to you now is, I've kind of needed to make it a priority to speak up more about what it is that we've been doing. We've just kind of been, or at least me, I should say, just kind of been on the low with everything, not really talking about what it is that I've been doing as an entrepreneur. So I want to speak more to other people in SaaS businesses about SaaS. I want to speak more to our customers and let them, more about me, myself, and our journey. And all of the skills that, I've learned over these past few years that I guess I've kind of seen as small skills, as not really big deals, are skills that I see that a lot of my customers don't necessarily have, whether it's email marketing, social media marketing, pay-per-click marketing, just kind of teaching them the basics of all of these fundamentals so that they can grow their business. So I guess we want to give back a lot to our user base in terms of education and, ideally growing a stronger user base as a result of that.
Very cool. Well, good luck with that. Hopefully next year is going to be better. No other Corona or no other stuff is going to prevent you from...
Trips to Tulum on me for everybody. Come on, let's go.
All right, Shay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
That was fun. My next speaker is Tavisha with a company called Samply Audio. Hi, Tavisha.
Hi, Natalie. How's it going?
Going great. How are you?
I'm good.
Awesome. All right. Well, tell us about Samply Audio. When did you launch the company? How was 2020 for you? And what are your plans for next year?
For sure. Yeah. So Samply is a cloud-based tool that streamlines the audio collaboration process for musicians and helps them efficiently gather their feedback as well as provide some real-time collaboration. So for a little bit of context, since it's very specific to the music industry and not everyone knows the processes, currently a musician will upload their file on like Google Drive, Dropbox, WeTransfer. And this is like top musicians like John Mayer, Taylor Swift, all these folks, we know of, which are not designed for audio. And then they get feedback through like many apps like iMessage, email, Messenger, and it's just completely scattered. Music is a very iterative process. So imagine going back and forth from your audio workflow to this feedback and then losing track of what feedback was where, what do I change? So essentially that's where we come in, and that's the huge problem in the industry we're solving. So to answer your question of when we started, where we're at, we actually had another product which we completely pivoted from in July of this year, and we are in private beta since September. That's when we kind of privately launched. So we're hoping to publicly launch come January. We have a waitlist up on samplyaudio.com. So that's where we'll be offboarding a lot of folks from. And the initial goals are just a lot of user adoption. We've had a lot of organic growth. We've been really lucky. We have a decent number of Grammy winners and producers on our app using it and spreading the word. So we are happy about that, but we're just trying to find the right ways to monetize that, and as well as push that into more of a user adoption and increase our MRR in the second half of the year if we can.
Got it. I actually have not met any founder in the music industry. So if anyone watching this, just drop your comment here in the chat. Be sure to connect with Tavisha. I think this is a unique area. Glad that we were able to connect. Thank you so much for your time, and good luck next year.
Yeah, thank you so much.
All righty. I don't want to butcher my next speaker's name. Hey, can you hear us?
Hello, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Very good. And we can see you. Hi there. What is your name?
Timo.
Nemo. All right. I thought so, but just in case, didn't want anyone.
It's like the fish.
Just yesterday, my kid and I, we were watching Nemo, both Series 1 and Series 2. He really wanted to talk about, what was the other one? The blue fish. Anyway, exactly. Probably lots of people make the same comments as I did, so I apologize for that. But hey, tell us about your company, where you are right now. How was 2020 for you, and what are your plans for next year?
Sure. So I'm from Sigma Polaris, and we do HR tech. I'm the founder and CEO. And world of HR and HR tech has been quite interesting in 2020, as one would imagine. Going through the entire sort of Brexit situation, and then with the pandemic thrown on top. And in particular, what we help with is recruitment technology to try and help make more informed, less biased decision in that stage. And 2020, I think, has been a year that has really tested if you are an entrepreneurial founder or not, because the handbook of how to do things got thrown out the window. And all of the tested and tried methods disappeared. Everything from marketing to lead generation to sales conversations, sales cycles, everything disappeared. Everything changed. And that obviously was extremely chaotic, as has been the case for, I'm sure, all of our listeners. But it also was exciting. Things would change quickly and you needed to be on your toes. You needed your team to be agile. And I think we've learned a lot in this period about, having to stay on the top of our feet, so to speak. I think it has refined a lot of ideas. It has been very hard, and unfortunately, it has also been too hard for many companies that would otherwise have made it. But I think the companies that have made it to this point of the year, they will make it through 2021 as well, and successfully so.
So how was your growth trajectory this year, and what are your plans next year?
I would say obviously not as good as expected. Our pipeline basically collapsed in March and April, and we had to rebuild everything. But because we had to rebuild everything and starting to be a little more creative about our market segment and messaging, etc., I'm very excited for 2021, actually. I think, that extra strain, it's like exercise. If you run a little bit harder, if it is a little bit harder, you damage your muscles a little bit more. But, you learn new things, you get better, you get more flexible, stronger. You find the key members on your team, how to utilize them the best. And I think 2021 is going to be exciting. I think it's like sort of the building up after wartime. It has been a very, very tough year for everyone, us included. But I think the next year is going to, see the growth happening again.
Any specific numbers you want to throw out there?
Well, my hope is at the moment to generate 2.5 million in revenue in our pipeline first half year, and I'm quite excited about that. I think we're going to see a lot of after this lockdown here with Tier 4. I think we're going to see a lot of rekindling of the economy. A lot of these plans, the Kickstart scheme that has been slowed down, it has to go into effect eventually, and it's going to happen sometimes in Q1. And a lot of the other programs, so it's sort of we've been hitting the pause button for a long time, and we know it's going to stop soon.
And where are you joining from? Which country?
Oh, I thought this was primarily, apologies. I'm in London, the UK.
Got it. So do you guys have lockdowns there again?
We do indeed.
Got
the
it.
Joy.
Alrighty. Well, thank you so much for joining me. Good luck next year. Exciting times indeed. Thank you for staying positive. Alrighty, everyone. I have my very last speaker, and this is Helena. Hi, Helena. Hey, very nice to chat with you again. I can't hear you.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Awesome.
Alrighty, you look beautiful.
Thank
Tell
you.
us about it is very fancy. Tell us about All Factors, your company. How was 2020 for you and your plans for next year?
Yes. So hi, I'm Helena Ross. I'm from Santa Clara, California, Silicon Valley. My startup is All Factors. We are reimagining web marketing analytics because Google Analytics sucks. And the reason I say that is we realized we wanted to work on All Factors after pivoting from another company we worked on 3 years. And the reason we pivoted is because we had a lot of challenges implementing analytics. And when I say challenges, I mean it was just very frustrating to implement the simplest things, like understanding what audios are played on the website across the different pages, what videos, besides logging into the actual platform, if it's like, say, YouTube, but basically just understanding our media consumption on the website. And then button clicks, form submissions across the site. So all the events was a challenge, and then understanding readership of blog posts and engagement overall to drive similar engagement. And after we tried a bunch of analytics tools and, of course, Google Analytics, realized, wow, this is really an unsolved issue that can be solved with clever implementation. And that's when we started working on All Factors. We started working on it this year. This year was really remarkable in all senses of the way, good, bad, but mostly kind of taking advantage of the downtime to research and understand what to build. And then embarking on the journey of building web marketing analytics tool, which is not easy feat to build something amazing, but we have a good team from the previous startup. So we were able to bring all forces together of our team, which is 3 co-founders, and get things going. And so goals for 2021 is launching the private beta in January, and I can talk more about the metrics.
So you mentioned the downtime. Apparently, you probably don't have any kids, because no downtime for parents, especially with young kids, because this has been 5 times as stressful with kids. So glad that you had this experience. I know that for us, it was completely different for sure. You were like short-staffed here in your household, and everything is just...
I can imagine having kids right now and doing a startup and being, kids being home. So yeah, I don't have kids yet. One, by the way, sacrifice that you make as a...
So do tell us a little bit about your previous company, what kind of background you have, and then share with us the metrics.
You said background first?
Yeah, I have not heard anything about your previous company. You mentioned that you've brought a couple of people from your previous company.
Yes, so my background is tech product management and marketing. My first startup was in 2012. So my experience is a mix of working on my own ideas and then working at a few Bay Area companies. And then I come from Israel. I studied business and marketing, and then I did tech in the Israeli Air Force. So my engineering understanding comes from there. So all of these sort of disciplines help me in my startups, but also obviously in All Factors right now. Running product, I'm a glorified product manager. Running marketing, I'm a glorified CMO. And everything else going forward in terms of growth and customer support.
Sounds good. Yes.
Yes. So one of the things that I think about is there's the idea of venture scale. And what I love about SaaS is that there are specific metrics and benchmarks that have been proven by other SaaS companies, and that's what I'm following. So my goal is to reach $1 million in ARR, annual recurring revenue, in the first year. And the way we're going about it in the beginning, in the private beta, we're going to have, by the end of January, just 10 customers testing with us, and my goal is to get to product market fit as soon as possible. And really the way I view product market fit is the retention that I set up, the retention KPI, and that will be basically weekly active. Because of the way we're building the product, it should be logged into very frequently to look at analytics, hopefully daily, but weekly is a good sort of conservative, at least in this case, because it's not consumer, it's still B2B. And because of that, that's really going to be my goal with the initial 10 customers, to look at retention, but also work through bugs. And then after that, it's really basically to get to $1 million in a linear growth, because getting to product market fit is not easy. So linear growth versus exponential, which is what the venture-backed company should have. The exponential part we'll plan once we reach the first $1 million. So in the first $1 million, I'm basically dividing it into obviously 12 months. And I want to get to that milestone of MRR that will take me to the ARR in the 11th month. And it's basically our average price is going to be $133, which is a combination of our 3 tiers, low, medium, and high. And based on that, we'll need to have 84,000 MRR, which will basically hit the ARR benchmark once we get to that MRR. And so I'm basically kind of working backwards. and calculating from there. So that means that in the first month after we're good with the initial set of alpha customers, the goal is to reach 61 customers and 8K in MRR. And from there, it goes basically, it scales up in a linear way. So next month is 16K, 121 customers. The month after that, 24K, 181 customers. And then it goes up until month 11, at which we reach 88K with 662 customers. And then basically we hit the 1 million in ARR. And then from there, the goal is to follow the SaaS benchmark, which is, if you heard about it, triple, double, double, double. So you basically triple from 1 million to 3 million, then from 3 million to 9 million. And then from there, you double, double, double until you reach 72 million, year 7. And then you will reach your 100 in year 8. So that's what I'm working on.
Very good. So the numbers are very well laid out. My question is, how are you planning to achieve that?
Good question. One thing that I realized is that actually to get to that first million, and that's what we want to focus on first, it's actually 2 customers a day. That's how many customers I need to acquire. So when you split it like that, you realize, okay, it's doable. And then when it comes to the marketing tactics, right now it's all organic. The plan is to create that flywheel now, even before we have launched, and that means I want to grow our invite list to 1,000 people. Right now, we're on our way there, but I will need to push on marketing, and I do plan to experiment with paid, actually, because I saw good results. So far, it's been organic, communities, everything else that founders do, obviously, across the web, basically going to where your potential customers hang out and talking to them and telling them about what you're working on. But one thing that I really like that I learned from Hotjar is really my role model when it comes to growth. They bootstrapped the business. They invested some of their own money, but they didn't take any external money. And so they reached all of these milestones. They reached 1 million in ARR in their first year. And what really drove their growth in the beginning is getting that beta list. And they invested around 10,000 euros in their paid to get to that list. They had a big list. They had like 60,000 leads on that list. And so I'm not going to invest probably that much into paid quite yet, but I'm definitely going to experiment in my platforms that my persona target market is at. And also the other thing is, because we are building web marketing analytics, it's very meta. So as paid media data will be coming in from Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and some Google, I will also be able to improve our platform because of the data that I will be experimenting with our own acquisition. So that's another benefit of doing paid for us specifically.
But Helena, thank you so much for all of this valuable information. I think a lot of people can definitely learn from how you are doing your metrics and numbers and the goals. I hope that next year is going to bring the results that you're hoping for.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks. Alrighty, everyone. Helena was our very last speaker. There are a few things I wanted to kind of mention to finalize this. I encourage you to think and just analyze this year. And there are a few questions that I encourage everyone to think about. Number one is things that we are all grateful for. I think there are still a lot of things that all of us can be grateful for, right? We're still able to sit here in this session and chat with you and talk with you. And so I think this is at least one thing that we should all be grateful for. And I'm sure there are a bunch of other things, our family, loved ones, that we can think about and just be grateful for. Next is, what are your key accomplishments in the last year? What are some achievements that we were able to hit? Next, what did you write that you wanted to accomplish in the last year? And was it different? Hopefully you had some plans for last year, but were able to achieve them. So I think comparing the two is an important step. And then looking back, what was one big weakness of yours? Something that you could improve on? Is there anything that you can think of that you need to be better at? Maybe, getting up an hour early, or going, I don't know, taking a day off every single month to think about strategy, things like that. And then in the beginning, I talked about the 4 things that we want to accomplish next year. Primarily, all of us talked about company growth, but also I encourage you to think about your health goals, about your relationship goals, and self-improvement, what it is that you're trying to achieve in all 4 of those domains. And then what's holding you back, potentially can hold you back from accomplishing those goals next year. Do you need to make some changes to your habits? For that, I highly recommend reading a book, Atomic Habits, or like, what are some things that you need to change to achieve the goal? Because there are always there's something, it's all in our habits, there's something that we can do every single day to help us achieve the goals that we want to achieve. And then I talked about your plan for next year, even though we want to have big annual goals, but then have a monthly goal. Take a look at the book 12-Week Year. And then I talked about the 5-step plan, how you can basically do like a 4-week supercharged year in 4 weeks. Take a look at that as well. And I am excited to hear your plans. If you want to share that in the comments here, do let us know. And Happy New Year, everyone. And I hope that this year is going to be productive, healthy, and profitable. Thanks a lot, everyone.